get into, ladies and gentlemen, the FTC shenanigans, if you will. Now, of course, we saw and heard from Florian Mueller. We heard from Post Up. We heard from a lot of people that know the ins and outs of this case, the backs and the forths. But one of the things that was interesting was Microsoft's response. And I have it here in front of me. And shout out to Tom Warren, who actually posted this. And I'm going to use his post and read verbatim. He says this: Microsoft has responded to the FTC's filing about Xbox Game Pass price increases. It calls the FTC's letter misleading, extra record account of the facts, and says that the FTC is wrong to call Game Pass Standard a degraded version because it includes multiplayer. So here is the response. And I'm going to read it verbatim. Now, again, folks, I'm going to blow it up so I can see it real nice. Where the heck did it go? The father, sister, brother. Okay, so it's long. So I'm just going to read pieces of it. If you want, I will attach it to the show notes. All you got to do is click it. You could read it yourself if you haven't already. And it says this: the FTC's Rule 28J letter presents a misleading extra record account of the facts and is a continuation of the agency's attempt to reinvent its case on appeal. Earlier this month, Microsoft announced changes to its gaming subscription service, Game Pass, to provide consumers valuable options at different price points. Microsoft is offering a new service tier, Game Pass Standard, which offers access to hundreds of back catalog games and multiplayer functionality for $14.99 a month. It is wrong to call that this is a degraded version of the discontinued Game Pass for console offering. That discontinued product did not offer multiplayer functionality, which had to be purchased separately for an additional $9.99 a month, making the total of the cost of $20.98. While Game Pass Ultimate's price will increase from $16.99 to $19.99 a month, the service will offer a more value through many new games available day and date. Among them is the upcoming release of Call of Duty, which has never before been available in a subscription service for release day and date. Now, in closing, this is what it says, and this is where the mic drop moment happens, gentlemen. The FTC barely mentioned subscription at trial, instead focusing on the theory that Microsoft would withhold Call of Duty from Sony's console. And it says ANSBR 18-19 and pages 26 and 27. The district court correctly rejected that theory, which is now further eroded by Microsoft and Sony's 10-year agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, a contract, and I quote, that Sony was thrilled to enter. While the FTC has now tried to shift focus to its alleged subscription market, its letter does not map onto its arguments below, settling aside that it is common for businesses to change service offerings over time. The FTC's case in all of its alleged markets has always been premised on vertical foreclosure, i.e., that Microsoft would withhold Call of Duty from its rivals and therefore harm competition. And in closing, but even in the alleged subscription market, Call of Duty is not being withheld from anyone who wants it. See sealed ANSBR pages 24 and 25 and 42, and there remains no evidence anywhere of harm to competition. Sony's subscription service continues to thrive, even as they put few new games into their subscription day and date, unlike Microsoft. Respectfully submitted. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen, read from top to tier. That is the mic drop moment. And again, it just makes you wonder why the court is even allowing the FTC to waste its time. I know I saw some people in the chat saying, well, this is the first time that I agree with the FTC. I personally don't understand where you could, but if that's your opinion, you are absolutely entitled to have it. Where I have a monster pushback here with anyone agreeing with the FTC, and pardon the vulgarity, I think PlayStation players have been bent over so long that they can't stand up straight and figure out that it hurts. I'm sorry. They go out of their way to nickel and dime you at every turn and offer nothing in their service outside of a few indies day and date. How anyone could suggest that this is A, bad for gamers, or bad for business for gaming as a whole, you are blinded by Sony's nonsense. Wake up, smell the roses, and stand up straight on your own for a second. And maybe you'll realize that they've been giving it to you and you just don't like it. I'm going to go in reverse order here. Fuzzy, by all means, let's get into this. I want to say it's backhand, but I really do think that this is a mic drop moment. I know I saw a lot of people running with, they're in trouble. They're not in trouble. You cannot bring new evidence to an appeal. That is an absolute law fact. That is what the FTC has been trying to do, and that's why they're going to fail again. Let's get into it.
Well, this is kind of a weird one because, in a way, I think the FTC gets a W out of this, but not in the sense that some people might think. No, they're not going to be able to break up the Microsoft acquisition. They're not going to be able to split ABK out of Microsoft. But I do think they will inevitably make Microsoft bend the knee slightly because nobody really wants to have this drag on in court. Now, the appeal process, this isn't probably going to be finalized with the appeal. I think because of the price changes and the things that were mentioned in court, they do have some standing. The pushback that Microsoft should have done during the court case is say, hey, we're probably not going to raise the price for at least 24 months or so after the acquisition or something to that effect. They didn't go into any agreements on anything along those lines. So I think we will see, Microsoft bend the knee slightly and say, you know what, anybody that was subscribed from 2022 on, we'll give you 3 months free or 6 months free or something like that. So I think us as the consumer for Game Pass, I think we will get a little bit of a thank you or an appreciation gift or consolation prize per se. But I think that's as far as it goes. And the way things are going now, politically and otherwise, I don't foresee the current admin being the ones at the helm when, this case is probably up for the appeal and whatnot. Where, given the election, I'm pretty sure Lina Khan is on her last few days. Whether, the Democrats pull off a win or not, I think they're probably considering a lot of the negative press that they've gotten from some of her wasting of taxpayer dollars to some extent and not focusing on other subscription services or cable companies or the power company or any other businesses that sometimes egregiously, beat over the head the consumer, where you might only have one option for your phone company, cable company, power company in your area. So there really isn't any option or choice. Those would have been better suited topics for FTC or areas for the FTC to focus on. But I don't see that they have much time in their current form to get much stuff done. But I think to avoid this dragging on, even though for the most part Microsoft has a win, but you could win and probably give the consumer back, or actually you could win and spend hundreds of millions of dollars in lawyers' fees, which they don't recoup those from the FTC. It's not like a regular civil case where you can, put in for, lawyer legal fees and things like that to recoup.
Right.
So they could either spend hundreds of millions of dollars that way, or they could say, you know what, let's just bend the knee. FTC gets a little W. We probably, instead of hundreds of millions, it's tens of millions by giving away a few months of Game Pass to those that are already subscribed to kind of cover, some of that price increase that's being argued or debated now. And I think that's ultimately the way they'll go. But we'll see. it's not written in stone or anything like that. But the way things are, unless they get a different judge in that Ninth Circuit court type of deal, yeah, FTC is already they've been struggling on an uphill battle to begin with. The other lead attorney recused themselves, so they're just throwing stuff at the wall basically, or stuff at the fan to see what sticks, kind of thing. But I think at for the most part, it'll probably be in Microsoft's best interest dollar wise to just cut it and say, you know what if we gave consumers back this little credit? Would that suffice? And if the FTC is smart and they want to at least have a W in their 4-year
small W,
yeah, that would be their only W, I guess you could say. So yeah, I think that's the way it goes down, but I could be completely wrong. We'll see.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, they're not going to be breaking this apart. The deal's done. The entire planet approved this deal. Think about that, how ridiculous this is. The entire Earth has approved this deal except for Lina Khan's FTC. But yet, my Con Ed bill went up 25% year over year. And there's no one to stop Con Ed from beating me over the head, paying for... folks, this is a small apartment. We've always paid more in the summer because we use the AC, because I don't like to sweat. But there is absolutely no rhyme or reason why I'm paying over $500 for a month. There is, because there's no one stopping them. Same thing with the cable companies, same thing with the phones and everything else. Those need to be regulated and stopped. The one place where you get more bang for your buck than anyone else is Xbox. I don't get it. It's fine. They're going to lose again. But Gamsley, let's bring you in. I mean, look, I read the response verbatim. This is on the heels of what I feel to be a waste of the court's time. I honestly do. You cannot provide new evidence for an appeal. This is not a retrial. This is an appeal to Judge Corley's decision. I think she got it right. I think that the Ninth District Court believes them. That's why they haven't ruled against her. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so let's start right there. Like, you have a point. First off, it's hard to argue with what you just said, right? There's other things in this world that we need to regulate over, let's say, this one thing. See, that point right there is extremely hard to argue about. Then when it comes to the courts, denying the appeal and all this stuff, that's another point there. So the FTC, whether they had an argument or not, which we can argue all day that they somewhat did in a trivial way, they did have an argument, but they butchered it just from A to Z. That's their fault, and that's all the FTC screwing up and not understanding how the game environment kind of works and who owns who's on top and who's whatever. They don't know their as from their elbow at this point, right? With gaming. But what I will say, and all of you guys in chat, before I say this, just understand, I don't give two ducklings about PlayStation or Sony. I don't care about Nintendo. I don't care about anything but except for the things I play and I consume, because I am a consumer. I've never fought for anything but outside of that. I'm a consumer. I consume.
Absolutely.
So what I will say is, on a consumer level, okay, before I say this, can you tell me what the package for console was at $14.99? Because I don't remember it. Can you?
Are you talking about the original plan?
Yeah. The original plan.
The original plan for console was exactly what it says. It was for console. The only difference is that it didn't have multiplayer, but it did have day and date games. Meaning that when Starfield came out, it dropped into this new tier, removes day and date. And gives you multiplayer, which would cost $21 if you had to buy it separately.
Right. So let's start there. So as a consumer, right, the FTC could have had a leg up and said, well, see, obviously this is what we were trying to fight for, but they butchered it, so they have no chance. This is what the whole argument is about. They just don't have a chance now. They butchered the whole argument. They didn't put up a solid case to stop whatever this is, valuable or not, that is like they said, kind of a degraded version. And it is. I mean, if it just is. You're losing first party games in your service for multiplayer, which is ridiculous and shouldn't be even paid for anyway, right? So on a Microsoft level, they're really butchering us as well, just like every single one of these consumer companies are trying to do, right? So we shouldn't fight for that. We shouldn't just have an argument that, well, Sony's doing it, Sony sucks, and the console war mindset. We shouldn't have that. We should actually just say and nod our heads, yeah, that's right. This Game Pass version does kind of suck and has no real reason to being here, and they're funneling us to the Ultimate Edition, which is a great value. That does suck. So I will say that, and that's my only pushback on this, because it's dreadful, and we're consumers, and we already have that electricity bill and all that stuff that you were talking about on top. So we don't need gaming to be more expensive, or this service to be more expensive than it already is or is going to be. And just because it is the norm to increase prices also doesn't make it consumer friendly or good. So that's all I've got to say on it. I'm not picking a side. I'm just being a consumer. And as soon as they increase a price on something, I don't really like it, but the value's there for me, so I consume it. But it doesn't make it right that it's a normal thing to do for trillion-dollar companies to up the price. So fuck those guys. Sorry,
no, it's fine. No,
but screw those guys. You know what I mean?
Per show. So you
yeah. So
you called
sorry,
it. So good on you.
Honestly, I'm so sorry. But
okay.
Yeah. So screw these, trillion-dollar companies and billion-dollar companies. I don't like them. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got.